Let us begin by discussing why presentations are important in engineering. Engineers are often required to present technical information to different audience. These audience may include colleague, manager, client, or researcher. An engineer might give a short 5-minute project briefing or full 1 hour presentation in a technical seminar. In both cases, the presentation becomes an opportunity to share knowledge and demonstrate professionals' communication skills. Many people feel nervous about speaking in front of an audience, but presentation skills can be learned and improved with participate. The goal is to communicate information clearly and efficiently while minimizing distraction or what communication experts call noise. Engineering presentation come in many forms depending on the situation and purpose. For example, engineers may present a status report to update manager about a project progress. They may also deliver a technical proposal when recommending a new design or solution. Other common presentations include technical seminars, product demonstration, or training session. In research environments, engineers often present project results to explain finding and conclusion. Each type of a presentation has a specific object, and understanding that object helps the presenter organize the information effectively. So the benefit of a presentation or an effective presentation allow engineers to communicate technical idea clearly, demonstrate professional competence, and support decision-making process. And oral representation is therefore essential for professional skills for engineer. So again, engineer deliver different type of a presentation. It may be a status, progress report, technical proposal, sale presentation, or project result report, recommendation report, tutorial for something. So it depends on a situation and a place. So the question now, how to prepare for a presentation? Preparing a presentation is similar to designing and engineering a product. Before building a product, engineers conduct research, analyze requirement, and plan the design. In the same way, preparing a presentation requires planning, organize idea, and preparing support visual. Proper preparation improves the clarity of the message and increase the chance that the audience will understand and remember the information. And the well-prepared presentation usually include audience analysis and clear organization, visual support, and rehearsal before the delivering. One of the most important steps in preparing a presentation is understanding the audience. So, if the audience already has a technical knowledge about the subject, the presentation can include detailed explanation and technical data. However, if the audience is not familiar with the topic, the speaker must simplify the explanation. For example, imagine explaining a complex engineering formula to a group of non-engineers. Without adaptation, the presentation could quickly become confusing and uninteresting. Therefore, a good presenter always asks, who are my listener? What do they already know about the topic? And what do they need to learn from this presentation? So you need to understand the audience, helps the speaker choose the right level of technical detail. So understanding the audience expectation is so important. You need to know who the audience is. The presenter must understand what the audience accepts from the presentation. Listener may attend a presentation to gain information, to learn something new, or to make a decision based on the presented data. It's also useful to consider possible questions the audience may ask and whether they may agree or disagree with the speaker's idea. So you need to ask yourself, what attitudes may the audience have toward this topic? What benefit will they gain from the presentation? And what question are they likely to ask? Why are they attending this presentation? And what action or decision should result from this presentation? By anticipating these expectations, the presenter can design the presentation in a way that directly addresses the audience interest and concern. So after that, you need to determine your time frame. So the time management is a very important part of giving a presentation. One of important rule is never exceed the time limit assigned for the presentation. For example, you have 15 minutes, you need to stick with the 15 minutes. Or you have 50 minutes, you need to stick with this. 10 minutes, you need to stick with this. So speaking longer than allowed can frustrate the audience and disrupt the schedule of the event. Knowing the available time also help the presenter decide how much detail to include. For example, a 5-minute presentation will focus only on the most essential data or information, while a longer presentation allows for more explanation and discussion. In other words, the depth of the presentation must match the time available. So we need to identify the key point. In most cases, it's impossible to explain every detail of a technical topic during a presentation. Therefore, the presenter must focus on the most important idea they want the audience to remember. A common recommendation is to organize the presentation around the 3 to 5 main points. These points should support the central message of the presentation. If a presentation includes too many ideas, the audience may become confused and forget the key message. So you need to central a message of the presentation with these points, about 3 to 5 main points. So the guideline to identify your key point is to identify the most significant point and see the time according to the importance and limit the presentation to a manageable number of ideas, 3 to 5 ideas. So after that, you need to organize the presentation. I will organize the presentation usually follows a simple structure. First, come the introduction, where the presenter introduces the topic and explain its importance, and it's so important to give a brief introduction. Second, come to the main body, where the key ideas are explained and support with example or data. Third, you need to give a conclusion, which summarize the main point and reinforce the message. Finally, many presentations include a question and answer session, where the audience can ask for clarification or further information. So, you need to know a common organizational strategy. There are several ways to organize the main part of a presentation. For example, the presenter may use a time sequence, describing event or step in a chronological order. Another method is to use a problem-solution approach, where the speaker first explains a problem and then propose a possible solution. Other approach include comparing different options, explaining idea from general concept to specific example, or describing a physical system using spatula organization. Choosing the right structure helps the audience follow the presentation more easily. So another tip, you have to prepare outline and note. Preparing an outline helps the speaker organize idea clearly and stay on track during the presentation. Some speakers also prepare note card or keep phrase that remind them of the main point they want to discuss. However, it's important not to rely heavily on written notes. Reading directly from notes can make the presentation sound vague and that the presenter is in stress and reduce the audience engagement. Instead, notes should act as a reminder rather than a script. So you also need to use a visual aid and a graphic. So visual aids are very useful in engineering a presentation because they help explain complex information, like figures, like a graph, like tables help to explain complex information. So People often understand and remember information better when they hear it or see it. So example of ID including a graph, diagram, photograph, animation, or technical illustration, or maybe include a small video. Visual can simply complicated idea, highlighting relationship between concept and make the presentation more interesting for the audience. And here an example of some visual aids. Okay, how to design effective visual. While visual are helpful, they must be designed carefully. Slides that contain too much information can confuse the audience. Instead, visual should present only the most important information. For example, a complicated electronic circuit diagram may contain too much detail for the single slide. In such case, it's better to start with a simplified block diagram and then explain the component one by one. Here. So, you need also to include a readability of a presentation slide. Another important design rule is a readability, that the text must be very high. The audience must be able to read the information on the screen easily. To achieve this, presenters should use large font size, usually at least 24-point size. Slides should also avoid a long paragraph and crowded layout. Instead, use a short bullet point and sufficient spacing so the audience can quickly understand the information displayed. Like here. Okay, now we said you must include introduction, you must include the main idea, then a conclusion, then after that open for a question. So preparing the introduction is extremely important because it sets the tone of the entire presentation. At the beginning of the talk, many audience members may asking themselves, why should I listen to this presentation? Therefore, the introduction should clearly explain the topic, its importance, and what the audience will learn. It's also useful to briefly outline the structure of the presentation so the audience know what to accept. So also, the conclusion provides the final message of the presentation. A good conclusion should summarize the main point discussed during the presentation and reinforce the central idea. In some cases, the speaker may also present recommendations and decisions or future action based on the information presented. Finally, the speaker should close the presentation politely and invite a question for the audience. So, you need to prepare a question. Before delivering the presentation, speaker should think about the question the audience may ask. Some part of the presentation may be difficult to understand and controversial or open to different interruption. Preparing this question allow the speaker to respond confidently and provide a clear explanation. It's also helpful to repeat the audience question before answer it so that everyone can hear and understand it. Okay, now we will talk about delivering a presentation. Once preparation is complete, the next step is to deliver the presentation effectively. So the goal is to communicate a message clearly and avoid distraction that could interfere with the audience understanding. In a communication theory, anything that interfere or interrupt with a message is called noise. Example of noise including poor speaking style, or distract body language, or unclear visual. So you need to avoid communication noise. So there is a several speaking habits can create a noise during a presentation. For example, speaking too softly may prevent some listener from hearing the message clearly, or speaking quickly can also make the presentation difficult to follow. Another common problem is speaking in monotone voice, which can make even interesting topic sound boring. So good presenter vary their tone and speaking space to maintain audience attention. So also you need to take care of a body language and movement. Body language also affect how the audience see the speaker, and how they give attention to the topic. Standing completely still can make the presentation appear stiff, and in other hand, excessive movement or pacing can distract the audience, like clock panadols. The best approach is to maintain a natural posture and move only when it supports the explanation of the presentation. You can also using a pointer and eye contact. So maintaining eye contact with the audience helps build the trust and engagement. It's also allow the speaker to observe the audience reaction and adjust the presentation if necessary. And when pointing to information on a slide, speakers should avoid turning their back to the audience for a long period. Instead, they should maintain eye contact while briefly directing attention to specific point on the visual display. Okay, and the least you need to handle an unexpected question. Even the most prepared speaker may receive unexpected question. When this happens, it's important to remain calm and confident. If the speaker doesn't know the answer, it's perfectly acceptable to say so and offer to provide the information later. Honesty is always better than attempting to give an incorrect or misleading answer. Now, if you do the presentation of with a team, so many engineering projects are completed by team, and presentation are often delivered by group rather than individual. So team presentation allow different members to explain specific aspect of the project according to their experts. They also make long presentation more interesting because the audience hear different voice and perspective. So there's a several advantage of team presentation: reduce preparation workload, the ability to cover complex topic more effectively, increase audience engagement through multiple speaker and experts from different team member. So you need to know how to prepare team presentation. When preparing a team presentation, coordination between team is essential. The team must decide who will present each section of the topic and how the presentation will transition from one speaker to another. So that's we called it a communication between a team. It's also important to allocate time fairly among team members so that the entire presentation stay within the time limit. So you need to assign a time for each member. For example, each member will speak from 10 minutes to 12 minutes, for example. Rehearsing together help identifying a problem and ensures a smooth flow between speakers. You need to do a training and rehearsing together before introduce or before present the presentation. So at the conclusion, here's the checklist of that can be used to evaluate the quality of the presentation. The checklist covers several aspects, including the introduction, organization, the body, clarity visual, speaking style, and effective conclusion. It's also considered that the presenter voice, gesture, eye contact, and ability to answer a question. Using this checklist can help a presenter review their presentation and improve their presentation performance before delivering the final talk.